Chapter 2900. The Dissolution of Their Engagement. 4. There was a table set that was entirely carved from crystals, embellished with a base of emerald jade. The bed was made of white jade, complete with a sophisticated pearl lamp. The mermaid's silk decorations gently danced in the current, softly creasing with fine lines like a natural work of art. Gu Shijio found herself on the white jade bed as she studied the entire setting of the place. Puzzled, she thought that Meng Huia needed her to threaten Di Fui. As a hostage, she should be kept in some sort of confinement with the highest level of security, or even tortured with some form of extreme punishment. Read more chapters at L.'s novel. Calm. Therefore, she was mentally prepared for the worst. But to her surprise, she ended up in such a picturesque place. More accurately, it was some form of crystal palace that appeared to be an architectural masterpiece. The Crystal Palace was situated at the bottom of the most famous river in the Devil Kingdom, the Soulless River. Her last visit to the Soulless River opened her eyes to many resentful devil spirits in the water. These devils could those who died a painful death, or those that still kept an ill resentment within them. Their grudge forced them to linger on, and eventually, they became savagely fierce creatures that swallowed anything or anyone they saw in the river. Even the bones of their unfortunate victims will vanish. It was completely out of her expectation that there would be a remarkable crystal palace nestling at the bottom of the river. When Meng Huia first dived into the water, she was actually quite concerned about the structure of the wizardry barrier. A slight error would allow the fierce devil spirits to break through the barrier, and if that happened, she would have no choice but to reveal her true self and shatter these spirits with her own power. Luckily, the wizardry barrier that Meng Huia cast was extremely solid. No matter how the devil spirits tried to break in, the barrier remained completely unaffected. There was not even a scratch. The quality was really impressive. Gu Shijio finally felt at ease and continued to play her role as a sweet, enchanted hostage in his bubble-shaped wizardry barrier. In fact, she was curious to see what he wanted to do. Surprisingly, he left hastily as soon as he hid her away in the Crystal Palace, leaving Gu Shijio with a lot of question marks in her head. What was he trying to do, actually? Fortunately, it did not take long for him to return from his impromptu trip. Finally, she knew what he actually wanted. He was trying to seduce her. The man showed her around the Crystal Palace and told her every fancy detail about the place. Thanks to his commentary, she knew that the place was solely built by him. Every single brick or tile had its own story. The whole tour was actually a major revelation of how he prevailed against many other creatures. At first, Gu Shijio was quite interested in finding out the intention of the man, but the storyline soon became dry and dull. She finally figured out that he was trying to make himself sound like an unrivaled man so that she would admire his exemplary heroism. Luckily, apart from kidnapping her, Meng Huia was quite polite to her so far. He did not keep her unconscious or locked up. It would seem that the man needed to win her heart. Women would usually be attracted to heroes, especially the ones who kept them safe. Meng Huia believed so, at least. He had kept the devil spirits away while they were traveling in the river, as her presence had drawn too much attention. And later, a severe earthquake shook the riverbed, so he steadily started casting a series of spells to support the Crystal Palace from collapsing. "Don't worry. I shall keep you safe," he kept reassuring. Since he seemed to have everything under control, Gu Zijiat took his service for granted and just sat and watched. As it stood, he would even go the distance to flatter her with precious jewelry. Persuasively, he seemed to be speaking with sincere and intense conviction. Sponsored content. After a long day of showing off, Gu Shijio finally got a grasp of his intention. Like a peacock fanning its feathers in a display, he was actually trying to impress her with as many assets as he could possibly boast. She touched her face in bewilderment, wondering if her disguise had somehow been removed. If she remembered correctly, she should look rather ordinary, but surprisingly, it was enough to attract many men. Perhaps her brilliant character was what they valued the most. Apparently, a mediocre appearance could not hold her back. If Gu Shijio were any younger, she would believe that this man was sincerely trying to woo her. However, years of experiencing the real world had taught her to be cautious about excessive compliments. The man must be planning for something more, otherwise he would not go completely out of his way to impress her. Little Jiao, what are you looking at? Meng Huia approached her with a tray in his hand. Sponsored content. Gu Shijiao saw the tray and was immediately attracted by the fact that her favorite food filled the plates. Her favorite passion fruit cookies were nicely prepared and had an irresistible smell. Frankly, Gu Shijiao was more impressed by the food than his excessive flaunting. He had done so many things but finally got one right. Happily, she started indulging in the food. Do you like it? Meng Huia seemed relieved at her approval of the food. He had done everything he could in the past 2 days, but she was largely uninterested in what he had to offer. Finally, there was some progress. I do, she complimented his great choice of food. Are you really the fiancé of the national master? Meng Huia suddenly added. She remained very non-committal and only answered with a smile, for she knew that he would be asking more questions. Sponsored content. As expected, Meng Huia began his interview. Little Jiao, what do you think about polygamous relationships? Would you share your husband with another concubine, or would you mind if he marries another wife? Gu Shijiao took a moment to think about it. When she was ready, she replied, No, I would not mind. From the beginning, Gu Shijiao knew that this was all meant to be a show. Having a husband was not part of her plan at any point anyway. Meng Huia was quite surprised by her honesty. You are lying. He then grasped her by the wrist and pulled her to him. Come with me. Gu Shijiao pushed his hand away with obvious reluctance. I will go with you. Stop pulling me. Sponsored content. Meng Huia did not argue with her and led the way. Soon, they visited the backyard of the Crystal Palace and saw an enormous royal blue crystal stone. Gu Shijiao saw it once when she first visited the Crystal Palace. A quick touch on the surface was enough for her to sense the strong flow of spiritual energy within the crystal stone. It was quickly apparent to her that the power it contained was even stronger than any of the spiritual stones that she had harvested over the past few days. At one point, she even thought about taking the crystal stone away to place it within the Tianyin Valley. Little did she know that Meng Huia was going to bring her to the stone. Soon, he began performing with a series of activation spells to turn the crystal stone into a mirror. Images then started playing across the mirror in front of her. Pavilions, terraces, and open halls were displayed in vivid colors, forming a bustling city view. Gu Shijiao found it impressive and decided to keep watching. What came after was a scenic view of the monster kingdom, along with its inhabitants. 2 familiar faces then appeared on the screen. They were Di Fui and Tu Shaning, the ruler of the monster kingdom. They could be seen having a chat under a tree. The message was very clear. It did not take long for Gu Shijiao to know that they were talking about a deal. Sponsored content. It seemed that Tu Shaning was obsessed with Di Fui. Perhaps, she was as equally obsessed with him as she was in regaining her title as the Monster King, so Di Fui went on and tempted her with a fruitful deal. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. Di Fui offered his help to make her the next Monster King, but in return, she had to become his concubine. Sponsored content. Tu Shaning was a little reluctant at first. She confessed her love to him again and asked if she could be his legal wife instead. Together, they could both rule the monster kingdom together. To which, Di Fui replied very frankly, the monster kingdom is not all that I am interested in. This is my only offer. If you agree to it, I will help you with all that I can, or get someone else to help you achieve your goal. Are you going to marry another woman? Tu Shaning was quite disheartened. Of course, I will only have one wife. The rest will be my concubines. Tu Shaning thought about the offer for quite some time before agreeing to him. At a loss for words, Gu Shijiao stared at the screen blankly. Sponsored content. Suddenly, the whole setting displayed on the mirror was changed to the Celestial Kingdom. The Emperor Immortal could be seen drinking with Di Fui. However, the content of their conversation remained quite the same. Di Fui was asking the Emperor Immortal if he could have the princess as his concubine. In return, he would be at the Emperor Immortal's service to rebuild the Celestial Kingdom. The Emperor Immortal accepted the offer immediately and even went into details to discuss their collaboration. Little Jiao, how do you feel about it? Meng Huia looked at her fixedly for an answer. She did not know that she was obliged to review the show. Nevertheless, she was also curious. Why must he use these concubines to secure his success? She finally revealed her concern. Sponsored content. Meng Huia answered with a hint of sarcasm. It is a prevalent tactic used by most rulers to increase their influence. Royal marriages are not a union of love, but a game of power. The royal officials will only swear their oath of loyalty to the king when their daughters become part of the royal family. The king has to keep the marriages going to spread his power evenly, apart from extending the royal bloodline. Di Fui intends to rule the 6 worlds but has never ruled a kingdom before. However, his status was even nobler than royalty everywhere else. Once the fragmented world is united, all rulers will bow before him as submission of their loyalty. His marriage with the princesses will serve as a promise in return that he will always have their backs. Gu Shijiao could not agree more. Most emperors from the mundane world had been doing the same for years. I see, she answered, seemingly with a clear understanding of the situation now. Meng Huia was at a loss for words. Her calm response certainly came as a surprise to him. He actually thought she would be devastated or even overwhelmed with a sense of outrage. Neither happened. She only seemed enlightened. Aren't you jealous? Meng Huia studied her expression intently. Frankly, she did not even know what jealousy felt like. If anything, she just felt slightly uncomfortable. Therefore, she dismissed his concern right away. No. Sponsored content. Meng Huia got the hint. It seems that you do not really love him. Indeed, there was no love. It was just a show, one which was about to be discontinued. In fact, she was already looking for someone else to take the role. Quietly, she had studied Meng Huia while listing down his strengths. He was capable, good-looking, and very charming. He had fulfilled all the qualities to be her next candidate, except for his lack of sincerity. His heart was obviously not in the right place, to begin with. Having him around would possibly cause her more problems. Nevertheless, she still stuck around as she had not found out what he wanted. It does not matter if I love him or not. As you said, men are all the same. It is a fact that I cannot change, she answered while keeping her eyes away. No, you have a choice. Meng Huia exclaimed excitedly. Sponsored content. Not all men like the custom of having more than one wife. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsors game to support us. Not all men like the custom of having more than one wife. Take me as an example. I believe that love is best shared between 2 souls. If I ever get married, I will love my wife wholeheartedly without any second thoughts. I will never marry another woman or make my wife feel bad. Sponsored content. Gu Shijiao was impressed by his undivided commitment. Proudly, she gave him a thumbs up. It is great that you are willing to commit. Your future wife will be so lucky. Meng Huia seized the chance to ask her, Little Jiao, would you like to be the lucky one? Gu Shijiao was dumbfounded. Are you not interested? I am not any worse than Di Fui. I only choose to have a low profile because I do not have much interest in politics. I would rather take my wife on a world tour to see the most spectacular views and eat the best food that the world has to offer. Sponsored content. What he described was the desirable life of a hermit. However, Gu Shijiao knew his intentions too well to give him her trust. His sudden appearance was actually a well-planned plot, so she did not believe anything that he said. Meng Huia was only here because he needed to secure his father's power in the Devil Kingdom. The Devil King was no longer around, and the successor had yet to be assigned. Di Fui had not made a clear indication on whose side he was going to take, so the regent and his son must be worried about his involvement. The little princess must be their tool to gain his trust, but she would never agree to be a concubine. Therefore, Gu Shijiao had naturally become their common enemy. However, since she had not exposed her identity yet, if they really took her as an enemy, they should have assassinated her. Why did they send their son to marry her? Do you know who I am? Gu Shijiao asked. Sponsored content. Meng Huiya was taken by surprise, obviously. You are the only woman I have ever loved. What a flirtatious man. Gu Shijiao began to tease him. You do not even know where I come from. How is that even love? Meng Huiya looked at her slightly awkwardly and said, Little Jiao, have you heard of love at first sight? Your ethereal beauty has bewitched me. Sponsored content. She could feel chills down her spine at this point. The man was taking it too far. She was not someone who could be fooled by these superficial words. Unimpressed, she looked away. You are a very good-looking man, my prince. Why should you give your heart to someone so ordinary, like me? Stop making fun of me. Troubled, Meng Huiya tried to explain to her, your looks are nothing but a cover for your body. Your depth of character is what I admire the most. Oh, what about my character? You brought me here as soon as we met. There was hardly any conversation. How did you get to know me any better? Sponsored content. Meng Huiya was dumbstruck, so he took a while to gather his words. Little Jiao, to you, that was our first encounter by the hill, but to me, I have been thinking about you since I first saw you some time ago. That did not quite make sense. She had just disguised herself when she first arrived in the Devil Kingdom, so the persona she carried was still fresh and new. How long had he been thinking about her, exactly? Gu Shijiao continued, How many days have you been back in the kingdom? Meng Huiya answered, Not long ago. I have not been around in the Devil Kingdom much until I heard about you. I came all the way back only to fall in love with you. However, I had to keep these feelings to myself because you are already the fiancé of the National Master. Seeing him with my sister prompted me to review his life by using the tracing spell. That is how I came across those images. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. He is not the right man for you, which is why I have brought you here. Sponsored content. He made a good point. Gu Shijiao could not think of anything to argue with him at the moment. Little did she know that he would seize the window of opportunity to grab her hands. Little Jiao. Splash. Bam. Meng Huiya was thrown into a thermal pool nearby with a splash. Shocked, Meng Huiya emerged from the water and looked at Gu Shijiao in utter disbelief. Little Jiao. She literally threw him out, overarm. Even Gu Shijiao herself was bewildered by her quick reaction. She had not put much thought into her decision. Innocently, she blinked her eyes at him and said, My prince, are you all right? Sponsored content. Remove ads? Great kung fu, Little Jiao. Meng Huiya had to admit it. Not even a great deity could send him across the air so easily, even though he was unprepared. How could a lady with the strength of a golden immortal throw him out so effortlessly? I am flattered. It is nothing more than a self-defense skill passed down to me in my family. Gu Shijiao gave him a smart answer. Your family? Where are you from? Meng Huiya seemed a little curious. Gu Shijiao raised her index finger to her lips and replied, It is a secret. Sponsored content. Remove ads? Dumbfounded, Meng Huiya did not know what to say. Meanwhile, Gu Shijiao began yawning. Thank you for your hospitality over the past 2 days. It is time for me to go. She needed more spiritual stones to complete her task. Another day of work should do it, and she did not want to be delayed. After she got the stones she needed, she would leave the Devil Kingdom. Anything that happened between her and Di Fui would remain in the Devil Kingdom. Where are you going? Meng Huiya asked. Gu Shijiao did not look back but walked straight to the exit. She could have used her teleporting ability, but it would immediately give her identity away. Exposing herself was the last thing that she wanted right now. Sponsored content. Remove ads? Smilingly, Meng Huiya looked at her in disbelief. He assumed that she would never be able to leave this place without his help. Right at that moment, a dense cloud of devil spirits surrounded the entire Crystal Palace. Without the right ability, she would instantly be shredded into pieces after one tiny step out of the safety zone. He was confident that she would change her mind once she was reminded of them. He decided to take his time and slowly emerged from the thermal pool and started combing his hair calmly. There was no rush at all since she was not going anywhere. Unhurriedly, he followed her to the exit and was ready to tell her that she could never make it out alone. On his to the exit, the howling of the devil spirits startled him. It was a sign of the spirits being triggered by something. Swiftly, he sprung into action, knowing that any delay would result in her untimely death. The lady clearly had guts, that much he knew. She should have stopped at the sight of the devil spirits. Instead, she went on. Upon arriving at the exit, his eyes caught hold of Gu Shijio in a bubble of light while making her way out of the water. The devil spirits clearly chased after her and screeched at the horizon of her bubble of light, but none of them dared to go any closer. Oddly, she could glide her way through the dangerous water with no resistance at all. The devil spirits even gave way to her automatically, like how Moses parted the Red Sea. Sponsored content remove ads? Meng Huiya stared at her in silent amazement. In order to safely travel through the water, he had to apply a layer of devil spirit-resistant herbs to keep him safe. Even then, occasionally, some spirits would still attack him. To his utter surprise, the lady only wrapped herself in a layer of wizardry barrier, and somehow that seemed to be enough to keep her safe even in the presence of the fiercest spirits. How powerful can she possibly be? He pondered. Could she be the creator of the universe? He shivered at the thought and refused to think about it anymore. Little Gio, wait a minute. He called out loud while making his way to her. However, Gu Shijio never turned back. She only waved him goodbye. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. Gu Shijio never turned back. She only waved him goodbye. My prince, there is no need to escort me. Don't worry. I have no problem with your sister marrying him as long as it is something he wants to do. Sponsored content. Meng Huiya was speechless. He never thought that she knew about his plan all along. In the beginning, Gu Shijio was just an accessory in his plan. He never actually cared about her. But watching her leave now finally made him confront his feelings. Little Gio, I really like you, he said to her, truthfully this time. Roar. A sudden cry alarmed Meng Huiya. He knew that someone must have hit the water and consequently triggered the devil spirits. He assumed that it must be someone fearless in the face of death. Sponsored content remove ads? All of a sudden, the water from above started to become clouded with bubbles. Chaotically, these devil spirits started fleeing down from above, as if they had seen something utterly horrifying. Meanwhile, Gu Shijio slowly made her way up, so the devil spirits from the bottom had to move upward to let her through. In an instant, the two opposing forces collided. Panicked, the devil spirits started fleeing in all directions from the chaos. Meng Huiya did not know what to say, for he had never seen anything quite like this before. He had been in and out of the soulless river many times, and there had never been an oddity in the spirits' behavior, apart from their ferocity. Someone powerful must have caused the panic, but he had no idea who it could be. Nevertheless, his confusion was soon answered. Glimpses of purple light could be seen shining through the dark water, like the sun in a heavily clouded sky. The ball of light was traveling down the water at an impressive pace. Meng Huiya could not hold his astonishment any longer. The newcomer was Di Fui. He never thought that the man would find them here. Sponsored content remove ads? Because of the pace that he was traveling, it only took around a second for Di Fui to reach Gu Shijio. Both of them were coming together from different directions, so they stopped abruptly to take a better look at one another. After a long sigh of relief, Di Fui went on to grasp her by the wrist. Chio! He called out her name. Gu Shijio had to make a swift turn to avoid his hand. She shifted her body aside and asked, rather dully, "Why are you here?" Di Fui was surprised by her lack of emotion. He continued, "Good to see that you are doing fine. Let's talk when we get out." Sponsored content remove ads? The devil spirits were still circling in the dark water, so it was not the best place for them to talk. Gu Shijio agreed, and with a nod, she continued to make her way up. Initially, she wanted to talk to him in a quiet place after getting back on the shore. Their engagement had to be formally and peacefully dissolved, as there was no point in continuing the show. From then on, she wanted nothing to do with him, whether he chose to marry someone else or not. She had to be firm in order to make Di Fui agree to her. After all, he was already dating the princess. She refused to be an unnecessary burden in their relationship. However, what happened on shore was completely out of her expectations. Sponsored content remove ads? The quiet riverside was no longer the way it was before. Mountains of people of different social classes were all present by the river. As soon as she made her way out of the water, she immediately became the center of attention. Gu Shijio felt as though she was lost. What was happening? Was the Devil Kingdom hosting a major meeting by the river? There were some faces that she recognized. Yin Jusi, the regent, Meng Luqing, and Yin Mingzhu were standing among the crowd. She looked around and caught something even more surprising. Two individuals with the least interest in the matters here in the Devil Kingdom were both present as well, Fan Qianshi and Wu Qianyan. They were among the spectators, staring at her fixedly like everyone else. Fan Qianshi was casually there to see what was about to unfold, but his face fell as soon as Gu Shijio emerged from the water. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note: please download the sponsor's game to support us. His face went pale in an instant. Wu Qianyan, on the other hand, gaped at Gu Shijio in silent wonder. She was so shocked that she almost called out to Gu Shijio in public. Sponsored content among the people in the crowd, only Fan Qianshi and Wu Qianyan could see through Gu Zijia's disguise. No matter what disguises Gu Shijio chose to use, there would always be a mole next to her lips, though in varying sizes. Years of traveling with Gu Shijio in disguise had left them with a strong impression of her. The unchanging position of the mole was how they recognized her. She never thought they would both be in the Devil Kingdom. The sudden turn of events would make it an inappropriate time to discuss the breakup with Di Fui. Otherwise, her entire effort of distancing herself from Fan Qianshi would go to waste. There she is. Miss Jiu is really here. That is right. The National Master has been looking for her. Hey, she is absolutely fine being alone in the soulless river. It looks like she has got some qualities in her kung fu. Sponsored content remove ads? Humph. What quality is there to be proud of? Can't you see there is a layer of wizardry barrier around her body? National Master D must have made it for her, the little princess sarcastically commented. That is right, she would never have made it out with her lousy kung fu, someone chimed in along with the princess. The discussion went on with many different opinions from different parties. Unfazed, Gu Shijio rose from the water amid the talks and stopped right there in the air, gazing at the crowd in an unconcerned manner. Di Fui emerged later with a leap and stopped by her side. Sponsored content remove ads? Congratulations, Master, for finally locating Miss Jiu. The servants chanted in unison. Miss Jiu, Master has been looking for you everywhere. Every inch of the Devil Kingdom had been thoroughly searched. I am glad that you are fine. Gu Shijio turned to look at Di Fui. Did you bring them here? She was happy that he came to her rescue but was annoyed by the masses of people around. Di Fui answered with a hesitant nod. Yes, but I had no choice. Sponsored content remove ads? No choice. Gu Shijio was puzzled. The emergence of Meng Huia interrupted their conversation. Who are you exactly? Meng Huia asked while staring at Gu Shijio with undivided attention. Gu Zijius furrowed her brows with disapproval. Surely, he already had some doubts about her identity. The regent suddenly raised his voice and said, Miss Jiu is really here. It has been a tough search, hasn't it? He then turned to look at Di Fui. Nevertheless, her presence here still does not prove that she is not responsible for the king's assassination. She could have gone into hiding after murdering the king. Gu Shijio understood nothing from his accusation. When did she become a suspect? When the king was murdered, she was busy collecting the spiritual stones on her own. Sponsored content remove ads? The officials who stood by the regents started chiming in. They were already assuming Gu Shijio was the murderer for 4 reasons. First of all, she had great kung fu, which made her capable of the king's assassination. Secondly, she did not have any evidence in support of an alibi. Thirdly, she disappeared right after the king was murdered, as if fleeing to avoid punishment. Lastly, a loyal escort of the deceased Devil King saw her fleeing from the palace, and her hairpin was found at the scene of the assassination. Gu Shijio listened on to their well-prepared arguments. Apparently, she had become the victim of their false claims. Amused, she started defending herself without even looking at Di Fui for help. There are at least 88 people here in the Devil Kingdom that are known to have better kung fu than the Devil King, so all of them have equal chances of murdering him. Also, the assassination took place during the midnight hours, the time when people are usually sleeping. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note: please download the sponsor's game to support us. It would be tough for anyone to provide evidence of their absence. Are they all the culprits? Thirdly, I was not missing. I was kidnapped and brought to the soulless river. Fourthly, the words of the guard could be a lie. The man could have easily been bribed to provide false evidence and blame me. As for the hairpin, I did lose a hairpin over the past few days. As it is worthless, I did not bother to look for it, and now it seems someone with ulterior motives is using it against me. I would assume that the man stole it and is using it to frame me. Last but not least, I have to explain that I did not have any motive to kill the Devil King. Sponsored content. She argued with rationale, and the regent was choked by her comments for a moment. Nonsense! The young princess screamed in anger. You must have motives. The Devil King once wanted to arrange a marriage for me with the National Master. I am sure that you wanted to rebel against it. National Master D must be thinking the same too. He wanted to do everything possible to find you and catch you. Gu Shijio laughed as she looked at Di Fui and asked, You searched for me because of this? Sponsored content. Remove ads? Di Fui stepped forward. It is not her who murdered the Devil King. The reason why I have not been explaining in the past few days is that I knew that she was in your hands. I was afraid that you all would act disadvantageously toward her, so I have not exposed you all. Now that she is safe, then I have nothing to hide. Do you all want to find out the identity of the real murderer of the Devil King? All the truths are here. He took out a light blue snail recorder, opened it, and there was a dialogue between many people inside. It was the original conversation recorded in the regent's secret room the other day. Everyone's voice was distinct to the point where any ministers who were slightly familiar with them could distinguish their respective voices. Those gathered around the soulless river were not only high-ranking officials but also the ordinary people from the Devil Kingdom. They, too, heard the conversation very clearly. Sponsored content. Remove ads? Once the snail recorder played for a moment, the facial expression of the regent and his men all changed. Even Meng Huaya's handsome face turned pale. Fake. This is fake. Visit our L.ist novel. The regent yelled as he denied everything. It must be that someone wanted to frame me and made this fake snail recorder. The ministers that were loyal to him naturally did not admit as well. However, regardless of how they denied, the people did not buy it. After all, the voices they heard were clear and evident. Furthermore, no one had seen a manipulated snail recorder before. Sponsored content. Remove ads. For so many years, the regent held the political ruling, and the Devil King had been suppressed under his control. But after Di Fui came, the Devil King stopped listening to the regent. They also had a big quarrel in the Jinluan Hall. Almost everyone knew about this incident. Therefore, it was not surprising if the regent planned to kill the Devil King. What's more, since the death of the Devil King, the regent kept urging the people to appoint a new king. He said, the country can't be a day without a king, to get the youngest son of the Devil King, who was 3 years old, to be the new king. However, it was Di Fui who argued that they should seek revenge for the Devil King first before getting a new king and refuted his proposal. Since Di Fui carried a high status and was deeply loved by the people, his words carried a lot of weight. Together with other courtiers' consent to Di Fui's plan, the regent had to agree with him. Sponsored content. Remove ads? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note: please download the sponsor's game to support us. The regent had plotted against Gu Shijio for a long time now. He ordered his son to kidnap her when she was alone, then accused her of killing the Devil King. Sponsored content at that time, Di Fui did not say anything else, which made it seem that he also agreed to his statement. Nevertheless, he said that he would find Gu Shijio first. As long as it could be proven that Gu Shijio murdered the Devil King, he would not be selfish about the matter and would settle her personally. Because of Di Fui's objective approach to the situation, the regent was relieved. He even pretended to accompany Di Fui to look for Gu Shijio. Since Di Fui was a very capable man, in 2 days his investigations led him to the Soulless River, and he concluded that Gu Shijio was in the depths of the river. Although Soulless River was a raging river, it was also a sacred river in the eyes of the devils. Therefore, no one was allowed to approach this place. Sponsored content remove ads? There were only 2 kinds of people who could go close. One was the warriors of the devils. To prove one's heroism, he needed to wash his hands by the river. If he were not pulled in by the evil spirit inside, he was declared to be a true hero recognized by the devil god and would be respected by the people. Otherwise, he would die a quick death without a bone left of him. The second was when they needed to sacrifice the living. It was a sacrifice to the devil spirits. Other than that, no one was allowed to enter the river. Doing so would be disrespectful to the entire devil world, and the people involved would be captured. Visit our L.is novel. Because of the need to search the place, Di Fui naturally caused dissatisfaction among the majority of the devils, and everyone flocked to stop him. The 2 sides were arguing. Although Di Fui was in a hurry, he also understood that he could not fight too hard, or he would offend the whole devil world, and he might not be able to go down the river with peace of mind. Thus, he made a bet with the regent that if he could not find Gu Shijio below the river, he would immediately leave the devil world and ensured that he would not intervene in the devil world's affairs in his lifetime. Sponsored content remove ads? This condition made the regent extremely tempted to agree, but he also understood that Gu Shijio was in the river. If Di Fui were allowed to search the place, the regent was certain that he would find her. Therefore, he still looked for various reasons to stop him. The problem with the plan was that the ministers under the regent's command did not know the inside story and felt that this was an excellent opportunity to drive Di Fui away, so they asked the regent to agree. If the regent king did not agree, he would probably lose the trust of his people and would also appear to be guilty. At that moment, the principal disciple of the god of creation, Fan Qianshi, came with his servant. His identity was noble enough, and he volunteered to be the middleman to settle the dispute. Di Fui promised that if he found Gu Shijio here, he would not flee. Furthermore, if she truly killed the Devil King, he would give justice to the devil world. Sponsored content remove ads? The commotion caused many people to gather on the riverbank, and in the end, Di Fui was right. Gu Shijio was indeed below the river. Meng Hui's presence came as a bonus to them. Obviously, Meng Hui was with Gu Shijio. This made Gu Zijia's claim of being kidnapped seem more believable. Additionally, the people were naturally more convinced by what Di Fui said. Not to mention the fact that he had proof right in his hands, so his credibility was even higher. Many eyes fell on the regent now, waiting for an explanation. The man's facial expression looked calm like water. He understood that public opinion was not favorable to him, but he was not rattled one bit. He was fully prepared. Sponsored content remove ads? After all, this devil world was his territory. Even if Di Fui were capable, he would not act against the whole devil world. He looked at Di Fui and began to make his case. National Master Di, you are not from the devil world, but you always intervene in our affairs. You must have your own intention. Your ambition is to control the devil world, right? Or, perhaps, your dreams are bigger, and you want to control the 6 realms and be the master of these 6 realms. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note: please download the sponsor's game to support us. You know that I will not allow myself to be controlled by you. Therefore, you created this whole situation to trap me into your game. I have always been loyal to the Devil King. Likewise, he had always believed in me, but you deliberately influenced him to rebel against me. I did have a few complaints about him, and sometimes I was even angry with him and let out a few bitter words. They might not be true. However, you took advantage and used some unknown method to grasp this information. And now you are trying to cover up everything. Perhaps you were the one who poisoned the Devil King and deliberately blamed it on me to kick me out of the game and then support the prince to succeed the throne and be under your control. Sponsored content. Gu Shijio crossed her arms. She felt that the regent's ability to reason was excellent. Most of his statements were actually quite coherent, and some were even true. But before Di Fui could do anything about it, the regent could not hold back his patience and sent assassins to kill the Devil King. This regent was really intelligent, so he should finally understand the whole situation now. This knowledge would certainly aid him in turning things around. In the end, the regent's words were persuasive enough, and some of the ministers and the people started to doubt Di Fui. The followers of the regent king were all gossiping with one another. They all said that Di Fui had a bad intention. In the crowd, there were many followers of the regent as well. Therefore, they all stood behind the regent. Aside from some loud accusations, a wave of discussion filled the place. The situation was quite unfavorable to Di Fui at the moment. Sponsored content. Remove ads? In this wave of controversy, the regent raised his hand and gestured. This was a secret code that signaled the soldiers in the vicinity to rush out from the darkness and encircle Di Fui and Gu Shijio. Their swords were unsheathed, and their arrows were ready on the string of their bow. Many silver swords glistened under the light. The regent sneered at Di Fui now, for the soldiers he had gathered were all his elites. If all these elite acted together, they could even conquer the whole celestial kingdom. Therefore, he assumed that Di Fui and Gu Shijio were no match for him. Apparently, this time, he wanted to set end Di Fui's life. Visit our L.is novel. He shouted coldly, Di Fui, you are ambitious to think you can stick your hands in matters around all 6 realms. Are you trying to replace the god of creation? According to my knowledge, the god of creation has not been around lately. Have you harmed her? He looked at Fan Qianshi and continued, Mr. Qianshi, I heard that you have been looking for your master recently, but you can't find her, right? Sponsored content. Remove ads. Fan Qianshi looked down at the ground. My master has been missing for more than 2 months. Indeed, I am anxious. Wu Qianyan looked at Gu Shijio and could not help but pull Fan Qianshi's sleeves to try to hint to him that their master was standing right there. Fan Qianshi then changed his stance. But my master's skill is superior to Di Fui's. She cannot be harmed easily. She has always been mysterious. Therefore, her disappearance may be because she has her own plans as well. In my opinion, this matter ends here. Everyone goes back first and sorts this out with one another. The truth will be revealed one day. We don't have to be anxious at this time. Sponsored content. Remove ads? He did not know that the so-called Agio was his master. He now immensely regretted his earlier action and almost vomited blood. At this time, he did not want to expose the identity of his master. Otherwise, the fact that God of Creation had become Di Fui's fiancé was going to be realized. Meanwhile, Meng Huia also already faintly guessed Gu Zijia's identity. He, too, did not want her to be exposed at this time. Otherwise, the situation would be more unfavorable to them. Therefore, he also persuaded his father to follow Fan Qianshi's instructions and persuaded his father to hold back his soldiers. Unfortunately, the regent did not know the inside story and still had a raging fire in his body. After Fan Qianshi came to the Devil World, they had secretly communicated with each other. Fan Qianshi affirmed the regent that he would support him and even promised to help him to deal with Di Fui. Sponsored content. Remove ads? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. Therefore, the regent did not expect Fan Qianshi to change direction at such a critical moment. What was even more annoying was that his precious son actually echoed his thoughts. he angrily said, "It is a matter concerning the life of the god of creation. How can we let it go so easily? We must take Di Fui down today." Sponsored content. Yes. He must have killed the god of creation. The Divine Lord is so kind and fair. She is highly respected and won love from all the 6 realms. We must seek revenge for her. Many people began to echo. The regent felt proud in his heart. He did not want this matter to be delayed anymore. He had created a good momentum, and the odds were in his favor, so he waved his hand to gesture the start of the attack. Just then, many swords charged toward Di Fui and his fiancée. The soldiers wielding them were all at a level equivalent to a might immortal in the upper bound. Needless to say, they were ferocious and dangerous. Obviously, the regent did not want to catch Di Fui alive. The man wanted him dead. It was beyond his expectation that Di Fui and his followers could block the attack. The regent stood there and sneered. "Whoever blocks me needs to die." Today was the day that he would take the opportunity to eliminate Di Fui once and for all. Sponsored content. Remove ads? The smile on his lips had not fully spread before. Shoo-ah! A sound was heard, and a colorful barrier appeared across the sky, which guarded Di Fui and his team. The colorful barrier blocked several sword squadrons that were charging at them viciously. The commotion did not end there. The knives were hit against the colored barrier, were turned into slag and scattered around the ground. The regent's facial expression changed abruptly, and he subconsciously stepped back. Meanwhile, there were people in the devil world that recognized the enchanting barrier. They exclaimed, "It is the god of creation's enchantment. The god of creation is here. The god of creation. Gosh, she is the god of creation." Sponsored content. Remove ads? Inside the barrier, Gu Shijio, who had always been carrying the appearance of an average person, directly revealed her real face. She looked stunning and put a group of female demons to shame. Her long dress was fluttering, and her body was shrouded in light. Her aura was so mighty that it put immense pressure on the people around her. She looked like a god who was overlooking her beings. Some of the senior generals from the devil world had once followed the Devil King to celebrate the birthday of the god of creation. Therefore, they were fortunate enough to see her original appearance from afar before and immediately recognized it. The regent never expected that the ordinary woman next to Di Fui was actually the god of creation. He was also stunned for a moment, and this time, he did not keep his composure. Even his fingers were trembling. Sponsored content. Remove ads? The appearance of the god of creation could be faked by someone daring, but the enchantment that she used could only be performed by the real god of creation and not anyone else. This enchantment was basically her iconic move, and no one could copy it. Many people had seen the god of creation's enchantment in the devil world. Even if the regent wanted to deny her identity, he could not do it now. Sure enough, after she exposed this skill, many people were screaming and kneeled out of respect. In just a second, everyone had kneeled. The regent's legs went soft too, and he succumbed eventually. Meanwhile, Meng Huia looked pale as he slowly kneeled to the ground. It turned out that she was the god of creation. No wonder those evil spirits dared not approach her before. Finally, he realized that he actually kidnapped the god of creation for 3 days. He also pretended to seduce her to keep his father's plan intact. In fact, he felt that seducing her was a downgrade. It was only now that he realized that he was the one who was on a lower platform. Sponsored content. Remove ads? She must have found his entire act equivalent to clowns jumping around in a circus, right? Or was it like watching a monkey performing some tricks? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsor's game to support us. Meng Huia felt like he was slapped hard on the face. Sponsored content. With Gu Zijia's glamorous reveal, the rumors about Di Fui killing her naturally no longer made any sense. Painting her as the main suspect of the Devil King's murder also did not make sense. Once Gu Shijio revealed her original appearance, she also said one thing. Her voice was calm, but the words she said were no less than a thunderbolt to the parties involved. The snail recorder was mine. I was there when you discussed the rebellious matters. The contents inside the snail recorder are entirely accurate and true. The crowd remained silent. No one would doubt the words from the God of creation. Therefore, it seemed that the death of the Devil King was indeed related to the regent. At this time, the regent's face turned blue and pale. His eyes turned fierce, and he decided to have one last fight. I heard that the God of creation did not participate in politics. What happened this time? Is it because of your engagement with the national master that you now want to get involved in politics and work something out for him? Sponsored content remove ads? His subordinates immediately seconded, yes, the God of creation originally belonged to the 6 realms, but now, she has an engagement with the national master. It is difficult to ensure that she does not participate in his affairs to benefit him. This is unfair. You're right. I didn't expect the God of creation to fall in love. It seems her objectivity can be questioned. Since the regent had come this far, he was naturally not willing to be defeated. As things had developed to this extent, only death awaited them if they confessed to their crime. Therefore, even though they knew that the God of creation was innocent, at this moment, they could only play along with the story and blame everything on Gu Shijio. Visit our L-ist novel. Sponsored content remove ads? The regent waved his hand and continued, catch all of them. Those who were loyal to the regent naturally moved forward, while other soldiers who were only loyal to the devil world looked at each other and did not know what to do at the moment. It was an absolute death penalty to attack the God of creation. They would be chased after by the people of the other 5 realms. Therefore, these people naturally did not dare to act rashly. Do you all want to rebel? A clear voice suddenly sounded from a distance. Do you really dare to attack the God of creation? Meng Lianqing, as the regent, was not loyal to our Devil King because of his personal ambition and has now put the king to death. This is a huge sin. It's alright if you all did not know the truth. However, now that the truth has been revealed, are you still willing to fight for him? Sponsored content remove ads. The voice of this person was very loud and could be heard by everyone. Many eyes turned on him. This person was Yin Jusi. His words were instrumental in persuading the crowd to think twice about their next move. In fact, those who were still hesitant looked at each other and then retreated without saying a word. Just like that, the number of soldiers that were out to attack Di Fui reduced by more than half. Meanwhile, the regent's eyes seemed to have a fire in them. He stared at Yin Jusi fiercely. It was rare to see him get involved in official matters. This time, he no longer looked like a hippie but came with the aura of a king. Furthermore, several officials stood behind Yin Jusi. They were a combination of scholars and generals. This sudden move definitely affected the regent. As he was an intelligent man, he finally understood that Yin Jusi was the one behind everything. He was that man that Di Fui truly wanted to support from the start. Sponsored content remove ads? Most of the officials behind Yin Jusi had always been against the regent. So, they did not exactly seem like a new problem for him. Nevertheless, what worried him the most was that one of the generals in charge of most of the soldiers in the devil world was also behind him. His position was equivalent to a marshal. The regent had always regarded him as his confidant and never hid anything from him when he did those dirty jobs. He did not expect this general to be a traitor sent by Yin Jusi. Sure enough, this general stood up and spoke. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsors game to support us. Sure enough, this general stood up and said, Meng Lianqing, you killed the Devil King, and the evidence is in my hand. Sponsored content. The regent remained silent, for he knew that the general had a lot of information about their plot. He did not hold back in releasing the material to the public. There were all kinds of pieces of evidence that he had gathered, people, items, and even the fact that the bodyguard that served the Devil King was bought off by the regent. All the pieces proved that he had greatly wronged Gu Shijio. It also showed the evil things that Meng Lianqing had done in the devil world all these years. Every time he threw out something, the people would hiss in shock and disgust. By that time, No one doubted the truth anymore. The people were filled with anger and yelled openly to punish the culprit. As for the soldiers who initially stood by the regent, at that moment, they were no longer loyal to him. Only a few were still on his side, perhaps because he had bought them over, or they were equally guilty. Sponsored content remove ads? Since things had developed to this extent, the regent king was obviously at a disadvantage. To add to his misery, Injusi had suddenly emerged like a king out of the blue. He looked at the thousands of people in the area and said calmly, "The regent has done so many bad things to the people of the Devil Kingdom, and many of you have not been fully informed. Since you are the soldiers of the Devil World, obeying his command was your duty, and there is nothing wrong with that. From this moment on, except for the few main culprits who had staged this entire plot, if you want to stay here, you will still be welcomed. I will not punish you for your past." Then he ordered his people to take out a basket of papers and said, "This paperwork has been collected for me when I was investigating your crimes. I haven't read them, but I will burn them and solve your worries as long as you can continue to do your best for the development of our Devil World and be faithful to the country. In fact, I will still reward you for your service. Visit our List novel." Calm, he flicked his fingers, and the papers began to burn rapidly. By doing so, he was giving those who were originally loyal to the regent a second chance, assuming they were not directly involved in his evil plots. Those who were given a second chance cheered and ran behind Injusi. Sponsored content remove ads? In just that short period of time, the regent found that only dozens of people continued to surround him. Obviously, the situation was no longer favorable to them if he wanted to go to war. These dozens of people were the confidants of the regent. Their hands were full of blood too, and they could no longer look back. The only thing they could do was have one last fight, though it was obvious how that would go down under these circumstances. In the end, the regent and the dozens of people around him were killed on the spot. The angry soldiers even killed the young princess. Meng Huia took the opportunity to dive into the soulless river and disappeared in an instant, while Injusi became the next Devil King once he showed the people his true caliber. Sponsored content remove ads? Of course, the power struggle in the imperial court was an intricate matter that he had to deal with. He still needed to put in a lot of effort to stabilize his position. Eventually, everything was basically solved, but everyone was still curious about one matter. Some ministers couldn't help but ask on behalf of the rest of the people, "Divine Lord, are you really engaged to National Master D?" Gu Shijio was stunned by the question, and before she could say anything, Fan Qianshi spoke up, "Stupid. My master is the god of creation. Do you know how noble her identity is? Will she be so free to engage with other people so simply?" She had done this just to facilitate the investigation of Meng Lianxing. She had to disguise herself to make it real. It is definitely not true. Gu Shijio remained silent. She was really doing this as a temporary agenda, but it was not to resolve the affairs of the Devil World but to influence Fan Qianshi to stop going after her. When Fan Qianshi said these words, he was looking at Gu Shijio to see how she would respond. Sponsored content remove ads? He looked calm on the outside, and his lips were even curved upward with a smile, but there was a panic in his eyes that could not be hidden. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Note, please download the sponsors game to support us. Chapter 29:13. Is the engagement real? 3. Fan Qianshi strongly refuted the question to try to stop his nightmare from becoming a reality. Nevertheless, Gu Shijio had known him for so long, so she understood his emotions. She saw the pleading and fragility at the bottom of his eyes. She suddenly moved closer to Di Fui, deliberately not looking at her apprentice's face, and faintly said, "I am the god of creation, but it does not stipulate that the god of creation cannot get married. I am truly in love with National Master D. With him by my side, it will help me to manage the 6 realms more easily. June 15th of the 6 realms calendar is an auspicious day, and I will marry him in the Tianyin Valley on that day. I will invite all of you to come and celebrate with us." My principal disciple, Fan Qianshi, will arrange all the hospitality matters. Qianshi, I am now assigning this task to you. You must do it properly. Fan Qianshi felt like a thunderbolt struck him. He felt as though his head had been hit really hard as he looked at Gu Shijiao. Master! His pair of eyes burned like fire, but Gu Shijiao only stared at him coldly and said, Qianshi, I know that you have the ability to make these arrangements happen. Alright, that's all for now. I still have something else to attend to, and I need to leave now. Then she turned and teleported away. In just the blink of an eye, she had disappeared from sight. Fan Qianshi was stunned. Meanwhile, Di Fui remained silent. In fact, everyone was stunned for a moment, but then they all turned to congratulate Di Fui. After all, Di Fui's abilities were well recognized by everyone. He had already made his mark on 3 realms out of the 6, and his prestige could only grow farther. Now, with the god of creation married to him, it put him in a better position to propel him forward to conquer the other 3 realms. In other words, the Lord of the 6 realms was going to be him. His followers were truly happy for him, and there were people in the crowd that shared the same sentiment. Once he became the Lord of the 6 realms, there would naturally be fewer disputes among the 6 realms. The long-awaited peace of the world and a world without war would soon be realized. Today was the 2nd day of June, and there were still 13 days to the date of the wedding. It was definitely very soon. When Di Hao looked at all of this, in his heart, he silently lit up a candle for Fan Qianshi. In fact, he suddenly felt sorry for Fan Qianshi. The man became the gold standard for unrequited love. His mother had no feelings for him at all and treated him purely as a disciple. She even tried to remove any emotions he had to set him up on the right path and make him concentrate solely on practicing. In this current triangle of love, Fan Qianshi was the most pitiful of the parties. But what about his father, Di Fui? He must not be feeling good either. Di Hao looked at Di Fui in the frame and realized that despite the fact that people were cheering for him, there was no joy or sadness on his face. In a restaurant, Di Fui went up to the 2nd floor and pushed the door of a room open. He saw Gu Shijiao, who was drinking wine in the room. When she saw him coming, she made a gesture and said, Sit. Di Fui sat opposite her and looked at her fixedly. Are you finally willing to see me? Don't want to hide from me anymore? He had been looking for her for 10 days since the incident, and it was only today that he received a directed audio from her to ask him to come here to meet her. Gu Shijiao raised her hand and poured some wine for him. You have overthought. I did not hide from you. I was busy with things and had no time to see you. I heard from Qian Yan that preparations are going well. She said that you prepared everything in the Tianin Valley and it is very grand. I had a stroll around the valley today and must admit that I am pleased. Chapter 29:14. Is the engagement real? 4. My apprentice has not lived up to my expectations. I assigned this matter to him, but I did not expect that he would get drunk every day and not even get up when I tried to wake him. Her words were polite, but they were also somewhat formal, creating a sort of distance between her and Di Fui. Di Fui did not drink her wine but swirled the glass in his hand. What were you doing? Are you not even bothered about your own wedding? Gu Shijiao was stunned by his frank reply. She was swamped over the past 10 days, trying to arrange the starry array in a specific position. It was a very time-consuming and labor-intensive task. In fact, she had not left the place for 10 days and only finished it today. After she came out, she saw a significant change in the Tianin Valley. Every inch of it from the hall to the small wedding flowers were all lovely and fascinating. She thought that her apprentice finally got down to work and was delighted in her heart. She did expect to learn from Wu Qianyan that Fan Qianshi had not been taking care of all these things like he was supposed to do. He was drunk every single day and would usually go out and not come back for a few days. Even when he returned, he would sleep for a day or two. When Gu Shijiao went to the Tianin Valley, Fan Qianshi was out drinking again, so she could not find him. It was then that she learned that all the arrangements in the Tianin Valley were by Di Fui. Gu Shiji pondered for a moment and felt that it was only appropriate that she should meet him and thank him for everything he did, so she used the directed audio spell to connect with Di Fui. And now, here they were in front of each other for the first time since the incident in the Devil Kingdom. When Di Fui questioned her, she looked at him with her bright but ruthless eyes. Fui, I had to deal with a few private matters. I don't need to report everything I do to you, right? She probably felt that she was too ruthless, so she frowned and added, you should know that this wedding is just a cover-up. It is not an actual celebration of love. You don't need to make it too luxurious. The glass in Di Fui's palm was spinning as he suddenly asked, Jio, are you still angry with me? Gu Shijio looked puzzled. Di Fui took a deep breath and reminded her, that night when I was with the young princess. Gu Shijio laughed and quickly interrupted him. You are talking about that incident. Rest assured, I know that you were trying to influence her father, Meng Lianqing, so you deliberately pretended to be good to her. I will not be angry about that. Di Fui's facial expression changed slightly. He wanted to add something, but in the end, it became a question, not angry at all? Gu Shijio raised her eyebrows. Of course, this kind of thing is very common. What is there to be angry about? The trick you used had been used by Yin Jusi on Meng Liuxiang before. It was just a matter of expediency. I understood it at the time, so I didn't bother. Di Fui was choked, but suddenly he laughed. Divine Lord is being really understanding now. However, why did you ask to cancel our engagement that day? I was afraid of delaying you. Then, why do you want to marry me now? His questions were getting sharper and sharper. Gu Shijio frowned slightly and sighed. That was because of the situation. I couldn't deny it in front of Qianshi. I am sorry, she finally felt apologetic as she looked at him. I know that it is challenging for you to tolerate me. So why don't we do this? After the wedding, I will try to arrange for a divorce and will not delay you for too long. In the meantime, if you have another sweetheart, you can date her quietly. I will close one eye and not interfere with you. After 3 years, you can officially marry again. Chapter 29:15. The wedding. Di Fui was appalled by her response. He lifted his sleeve off the table and got ready to leave. You are really trying your best for your apprentice. Divine Lord, please rest assured, I admire your open-mindedness, and I intend to put it into practice. Then he turned away and left. Gu Shijio sat in the same place and looked down at the wine in the cup. She slowly put it near to her lips and drank it. As she took a gulp, she was choked and coughed repeatedly for a moment. When the coughing finally stopped, she suddenly felt that the originally mellow wine in her glass had suddenly become bitter. It made her chest a little stuffy, and she no longer wanted to drink it. The wedding ceremony of the god of creation was naturally the center of attention of the entire world. There were full attendance and representation from the officials of all 6 realms. The vast Tianyin Valley was quite full of people on this day. Fortunately, the steward who Di Fui chose to manage all of these matters was a competent person. This person was not only hardworking but also versatile. There were so many guests and so many chores that needed to be sorted, but he could arrange it in a fast and orderly manner. All the people did their jobs well, and there was no chaos at all. Gu Shijio had some time on her hands, so she simply meditated for 2 days and only came out 1 day before the wedding. Wu Qianyan reported to her and said that National Master Di had sent a wedding dress and asked her to give it a try. In her lifetime, Gu Shijio had never expected that she would wear a wedding dress one day. The wedding dress was very costly as it was sewed by the most famous embroiders in the 6 realms using the best silk satin. It took them 10 days without any sleep to finish this dress. There were a few phoenixes on the wedding dress that danced and looked like they were alive. She donned the dress piece by piece on her body, and then wore the phoenix crown with a pearl on her hair. She looked into the mirror, and the flaming red color of her dress reflected on her slightly pale face with a blush. The swaying tassels made her pretty face look like a peach blossom. Read more chapter on VIP novel. The entire wedding dress was gorgeous, and Gu Shijio let out a sigh of relief as she sorted out her eyelashes with a curler. Every girl had a dream wedding dress in their heart, and Gu Shijio was no exception. Nevertheless, she did not even know what she liked until this moment. Even though all of it was just a show, in the end, it actually fulfilled a dream of hers. She spun around, and the wedding dress fluttered perfectly with the movements of her body. She felt delighted with this wedding dress, and then turned to ask Wu Qianyan behind her, "Qianyan, how do you feel?" Wu Qianyan was a little worried to the point where she did not even hear Gu Shijiao speak. Gu Shijiao had to ask her again before her mind was brought back into the room. She smiled and replied, "It is nice. You look stunning wearing this dress. You will be the most beautiful bride in the world tomorrow." Gu Shijiao was satisfied with that answer. She straightened the coronet on her head and casually asked, "Where is Qianshi?" Wu Qianyan was stunned by the question. She answered, "He is out, hasn't come back yet." Gu Zijia frowned. This child has not been sensible recently. Wu Qianyan subconsciously tried to cover for him. He should be out to buy the items needed for the wedding. That's good. Fortunately, he is not that insensible after all. Wu Qianyan looked down to the ground and sighed. Gu Shijiao found Fan Qianshi in the underground cellar of a restaurant. He was drunk and had stolen a dozen of excellent wines hidden in the house. He was lying on the ground and sleeping when she found him. The air was filled with the smell of alcohol as he murmured something in his dream, "Master? Why?" Chapter 29:16, The Wedding, 2. Am I not good enough? I like you so much. His clean clothes were full of dirt at the moment, and he looked like a lonely tramp. Gu Shijiao looked down at him, and there was clear pain at the bottom of her eyes. After all, she taught him for so many years, so seeing him like this would inevitably affect her. She would be lying if she said she was not distressed. However, she should not give him any hope. She had to be cruel to free him of his unrequited love so that he could ultimately come back to his senses. The pain he was going through was something that he needed to experience. Otherwise, he would never let go. Under normal circumstances, a person suffering from unrequited love would turn their attention to their career. As for Fan Qianshi, she believed that his focus would soon shift to his practice. With that in mind, Gu Shijiao turned and was about to teleport away, but the door of the wine cellar was suddenly opened, and 3 people sneaked in. These 3 people were dressed like the shopkeepers of the cellar. They saw Fan Qianshi and were furious and shocked. "No wonder our stock has been missing. We have a thief. Hit him. Hit him. Hit this little thief." The 3 men picked up 3 wooden sticks and smashed Fan Qianshi's face. Meanwhile, Fan Qianshi was so drunk that he simply could not defend himself. He got hit a few times on his face to the point where it turned reddish. Gu Shijiao frowned. She pulled her fingers together as though she was about to do something, but in the end, she held herself back. It was good for him to face the consequences of his actions since he had stolen a lot of wine from the shop. She should let him have a lesson. Anyway, Gu Shijiao thought that these people would throw him out after a few hits, but she did not expect that they would endlessly hit him with the sticks. She watched Fan Qianshi get whacked 30 to 40 times until his nose and face were obviously swollen. What was worse was that these people did not seem like they were going to stop. One of them even drew out a knife to cut him and feed him to the dog. This was clearly too much. Therefore, Gu Shijiao pinched a spell in her fingers and pointed at Fan Qianshi. There was a colorless and transparent cover that suddenly appeared over his body. The man with the knife did not see it went forward to cut Fan Qianshi's neck. However, as she attempted to cut Fan Qianshi, the invisible barrier responded, and he was thrown to the back of the room, almost cutting himself in the face. He was shocked and quickly threw away his knife. "There is a ghost." The invisible barrier also repelled the sticks that the other people had used to hit Fan Qianshi. Quickly, all of the people in the room grew suspicious. They looked at each other and did not dare to hit him again. Instead, they lifted Fan Qianshi and threw him into the mud on the street. When they went back to the wine cellar and counted the jars, they accidentally found a few silvers on the ground, enough to pay for the wine stolen by Fan Qianshi. They groaned and picked up the silvers, and later regretted what they did to the man. It seemed that this drunk man was not trying to eat a free meal. He had left a few pieces of silver coins as payment. The wind on the street was bleak, and Fan Qianshi was lying in leeches. He had no intention to wake up. He was aware of the pain on his body and face despite his drunken state. He spoke softly, "Master, don't abandon me." Master, even if you hit me, please don't leave me. Master, I am hurt. Gu Zijia's fingers were trembling slightly at this point. She was angry but also felt sorry for the poor guy. Soon, a group of people around the street circled him and pointed at him. Someone actually recognized him. Hey, is he the principal disciple of the Divine Lord of the Tianyin Valley? Gu Shijio was speechless. No matter how angry she was, she still did not want her apprentice to lose his face here. But just when she was about to remove him secretly, there was a gust of wind around the grounds. Chapter 29:17 The Wedding 3 The flat ground suddenly burst into a gust of wind, to the point where the crowd could hardly open their eyes and mouths. When the strong winds had passed, Fan Qianshi, who was on the ground, had disappeared. Everyone was speechless except Gu Shijio, who was relieved. She recognized that Wu Qianyan caused the gust of wind. It seemed that she arrived in time to save him. Fan Qianshi did not return that night, and Wu Qianyan was nowhere to be seen either. Gu Shijio initially thought that Wu Qianyan would bring the drunken Fan Qianshi back home. After all, tomorrow was her wedding day, and he was her only apprentice. It would not be appropriate if he did not show up. Furthermore, since Wu Qianyan had a good pair of hands, Gu Shijio expected her to help as she dressed up tomorrow for the big event. Wu Qianyan had always been a sensible person, and she had no reason not to come back. However, as the sky grew brighter, the two people still did not show up. This made Gu Zijia's heart a little uneasy. She wondered what had happened to the two of them. Nevertheless, with their abilities, it was difficult for anyone in this world to challenge them. So they probably did not encounter any trouble. Perhaps, Wu Qianyan saw that Fan Qianshi was so drunk that she did not dare to bring him back, so she stayed outside with him and took care of him. But even though Wu Qianyan did not come back last night, she still needed to get dressed for today. Therefore, she should be back soon, right? Fortunately for Gu Shijio, the matron of honor who was sent by Di Fui could help Gu Shijio get dressed. Quickly, she put makeup on Gu Shijio to get her ready for the wedding. The method that the matron had used definitely caused some pain to Gu Zijia's face. Nonetheless, she was born with natural beauty, so even though she was getting married, she only needed to put on a layer of thin powder. When all was done, Gu Shijio looked at herself in the mirror. She had a pair of beautiful eyes, a reddish face, and fair skin. When the flaming tassel was floating in front of her, it made her feel a bit strange. Although she felt that she looked very pretty, she knew that it was all fake. She stopped for a moment to imagine how it would feel if it were true, but then laughed at herself for thinking so. How could it be true? Both she and Di Fui had their own agenda. This was simply a mutually beneficial situation. While still occupied in her thoughts, the matron of honor whispered to her, "Divine Lord, should you set off to pick up the groom now?" Gu Shijio was stunned for a moment. She just remembered that Di Fui would be married in her house this time, so she needed to pick him up personally. Quickly, she got up and strode out. "Let's go!" It was common to marry a bride, but it was rare to see a bride marry the groom, not to mention that it was the Divine Lord who married a husband. Therefore, at this time, it was not only her house that was full of guests but also along the streets all the way to the Tianqing Palace, where Di Fui stayed. The streets were filled with people who wanted to watch it live. The team to pick up the groom marched on the street as the firecrackers were set off, and the music was played. Gu Shijio opted not to take the sedan chair but sat in a large, luxurious car. After they reached the groom, he would sit together with her in the car. She opened the curtain and looked outside of the car as it was traveling to Di Fui. Around 600 people were traveling with her to his place. This made the marching on the street look very grand as they were surrounded by people who admired the Divine Lord. Nonetheless, there were also a few inharmonious sounds that occasionally chimed in. I didn't expect the National Master to marry the Divine Lord. It seems as if he is trying to exploit the power of the Divine Lord, which is why he compromised for this kind of marriage. You're right. The National Master is a very proud man. There are a lot of powerful ladies who want to marry him, but he never even gave them a chance. Now, he is going to marry to the Divine Lord so openly. Perhaps, this was the condition set by Divine Lord to marry him. Chapter 29:18 The Wedding 4. Nevertheless, if the national master did not benefit from it, he surely wouldn't agree to it. A real man should not openly attach themselves to just one woman. The Divine Lord is the god of the 6 realms. If she were to get attached, she would surely marry a husband. Anyway, this is also good for us. As the husband of Divine Lord, no one would dare to provoke National Master D anymore. His identity is more honorable now, and it is just a matter of time for him to rule the 6 realms. A man can always be flexible. It doesn't matter to compromise a little bit to achieve a bigger goal. TSK? After all his efforts, it seems that the national master is going to rely on his wife's status. As you said, it is not that noble. I will never do this if it happened to me. I would rather have nothing in my life than to have to rely on my wife for my success. I would rather get an obedient wife and a few more beautiful concubines. That is my greatest joy of life. Shoo. Lower down your voice, please. This is Divine Lord. She is different from other women. These people's voices were not very high, but Gu Shijio was very good at hearing, and naturally, she heard all of their conversations. She frowned slightly when someone alerted them to it. Then, her fingertips moved, and a touch of pale light emerged from the car. Those people who were gossiping suddenly felt an itch on their throats, and soon, they realized that they could not open their mouth or even utter a word. They were certainly shocked by the itchiness and discomfort. It was so bad to the point where they felt like pulling their tongues out to scratch their throats. Even then, their mouth could not be opened and was tightly sealed. All of them looked rather crazy trying to figure out how to open their mouth and scratch the inside of their throat. The people in the crowd thought they were mad, so they stayed far away from them. This little chaos naturally did not affect the team at all. They were still moving forward to Di Fuya's house. Gu Shijio put her hand back down inside the vehicle. These people would feel the itch for 3 days and would not be able to sleep, drink, or eat during that time. It was just a small punishment for them so that they would learn their lesson. She did not treat these people's words as an insult to her, but she definitely reflected on what they said. Suddenly, she realized that Di Fui paid a higher price for this show. He actually did not need to get married to her, and he could still rule the 6 realms on his own. It was just a matter of time. However, because of the wedding, he was being described as a man who relied on his wife. This reputation might never disappear in his lifetime. If she knew this earlier, it seemed that she was not considerate enough in their arrangement. She had to try to remedy it in the future. Soon, Gu Shijio and her team arrived at the front of the Tianxing Palace. Compared with the lively atmosphere in the Tianin Valley, this place was quite deserted. The door was closed, and only 2 or 3 doormen guarded the entrance. There were some worries in Gu Zijia's heart when she saw the scene. Over the past few days, Di Fui was definitely mad with her, and she did not contact him to sort out the issues they had. Would he regret getting married to her now? She got out of the car, and the doorman greeted and saluted her. Divine Lord. Where is your master? Master? Divine Lord, please come in first. My master will come out soon. Gu Shijio secretly heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he was in the house and did not escape from the wedding, it was all right. She left the team outside as she stepped into the palace. It was the first time she entered the Tianxing Palace. She found the decorations inside quite festive with a big red double happiness word hung inside. Red silks were hung everywhere as a sign of prosperity. Gu Shijio was taken into the main hall by the housekeeper in the house. This hall had been elegantly arranged. A peony flower shaped in the word, she, was hung in the middle with red pearls hanging on the ceiling. The decoration was flawless and powerful. Di Fui actually did it himself. Apparently, the arrangement here was more interesting than in the Tianin Valley. Chapter 29:19 The Wedding 5 Gu Shijio could not help but explore the place again. All of a sudden, she felt that she preferred the layout here. Seeming impressed by the design, she thought that it would be nice for her to wait for Di Fui here, so she did not expect the butler to just take her here and then turn around and bring her to the back of the palace. The rest of the interior of the palace was also decorated with the same luxury, which made Gu Shijio have a feeling that this was the actual wedding room. Although Gu Shijio did not know the custom procedure of the wedding, when a family had a daughter who was getting married, the groom's house would be decorated nicely while the bride's place would only have a sticker on the door. Nonetheless, today's situation was different, so should Di Fuya's home look simpler than hers? She had not heard about a situation where there were decorations on both sides. Today was probably the one and only time. The layout of his wedding room was as good as the wedding room at the Tianyin Valley and even transcended her place. When she came in, Di Fui was sitting at the table with a pot of wine and 2 cups in front of him. He was still dressed in his usual home attire. His elegant purple robes accentuated his handsome face. "How is the layout of this wedding room?" Di Fui asked her. "Very good. It's very beautiful." Gu Shijio praised. "Do you like it?" "Yes." Gu Shijio couldn't help but ask, "But the outside looks sorrowful and lacking festivity. The door was closed, so I thought you had changed your mind about the wedding." Di Fui looked at her and smiled. "How come? I have been looking forward to this moment for a long time." Gu Shijio breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "I knew I could count on you." She looked around again before continuing, "Since you are going to my place, even though you decorated this room so nicely, it won't be used." Di Fui smiled. "Do you mean to say that I will always live with you? Are you not afraid that it will make it real? Are you really planning to sleep with me tonight?" Di Fui asked in a teasing manner. Gu Zijia's heart pumped faster after listening to the last question, and her face slightly reddened. She cleared her throat before replying, "You must be joking." Di Fuya's smile faded quickly. "Yeah, I was just joking. We are only putting on a show. So, after the wedding, we will sleep separately." Gu Shijio felt slightly apologetic in her heart, but she could not say anything else, so instead, she tried to change the topic. "Your wedding room is very well decorated. When you are married to your lover, you can arrange it this way." Di Fui clasped his fingers on the glass tightly and smiled. "You're right. I will definitely do my best for my lover. In the future, I will give her a grand wedding, and she will be happily married in my house so that everyone in the world would know that she is my wife." He seemed to think of something while speaking and raised his hand to present a stack of clothes to Gu Shijio, which he placed on his palm. Gu Zijia's eyes narrowed slightly to focus on the attire. This was another wedding gown. "This wedding gown was carefully prepared for my lover. Come, Divine Lord, please help me to take a look at it." Gu Shijio was speechless. She subconsciously looked at the gown and finally understood why people usually tried not to compare. Though the dress that she wore was already very beautiful, when it was compared with this set in front of her, they were as different as heaven and earth. The main difference was that this set was woven with mermaid silk. The silk was condensed with a unique method requiring sunlight and cost $1 million for every inch produced. There was simply no price for this dress at all in the market. Chapter 29:20 The Wedding 6. Not to mention the gown was also embedded with numerous valuable gems. These gems seemed to be glowing and formed a starry sky pattern around the dress. The piece of luxury was exquisite and majestic, to say the least. These gems above were naturally very exclusive. Perhaps, even one piece was enough to buy over a city. Additionally, the mermaid's silk was fine and delicate, which made her feel like she was holding a dim moon in her hand. If she wore it on her body, she was sure that it would be very smooth and comfortable. Gu Shijio was very knowledgeable, so she could roughly estimate that the production of this costume would take at least 20 years. It was not something that the dress she currently wore could ever compare with. She could not help but wonder who would wear this wedding gown in the future. Would the woman who wears this dress be happy? Unfortunately, she could not see it. Later, she suddenly felt that the wedding gown on her body was a little uncomfortable, and her heart ached a little. "So, what is your opinion on this dress?" Di Fui looked at her as he asked. "It seems very premium, elegant, and beautiful." Gu Shijio threw all the words she could think of to describe the wedding gown on the table, but she refused to touch it again as it would only make her feel worse. Fortunately for her, Di Fui kept the dress away and did not showcase it anymore to aggravate her discomfort. Then, Gu Shijio looked at the hourglass and urged him, "We are not exactly early. Are you ready to go?" Are you going to get changed? Do you want me to put on a wedding attire? Of course. It was too casual if he wore his home attire for a wedding. What's more, the man was the groom. Okay, then you can help me wear it? Ah, please help me put it on. Di Fui spoke calmly. Gu Shijio was undoubtedly stunned by his request, but she recalled that Di Fui had given up a lot for her with this arrangement, so she agreed to help him just this once. The style of Di Fui's gown was rather simple. It was mostly red and embroidered with the pattern of a dragon. This actually made his outfit look rather matching with the dress that she was wearing now. As Gu Shijio prepared to help him, she could not help but ask a question. You must have also prepared a wedding attire that matches that starry gown, right? How does it look like? Di Fui did not look back at her as he replied, Of course. However, there is no need to show it to you now. Gu Shijio was choked by his reply but did not know how to refute it. Anyway, she should not be too pushy with him now since he was doing her a big favor. If he did not want to show it, then that was his call. If he wanted to show it to her in the future, perhaps, she might not even want to look at it when the time came. While she was pondering these thoughts, Di Fui had already taken off his robes. Since she was occupied in her thoughts, when Gu Shijio looked at him, he was only left with a pair of trousers. The proportions of his body were incredibly perfect. Anyone who glanced at it would inevitably be drawn to take a second look. In fact, Gu Shijio had already found herself watching him for the third time. Hold on. Stop. Gu Shijio abruptly moved her eyes away from the man's body before she continued, You don't have to take off everything, right? You just need to change your outer robe with the wedding suit. You don't even have to change your innerwear. If he continued to take off his clothes, he would be naked. Di Fui casually replied, Even if it is just a show, I want to make it perfect. As a newlywed, the clothes should be new from my head to my toes. It would be more auspicious that way. He finally turned and looked at her this time when he spoke, Are you wearing any old pieces of clothing? This was not the case for Gu Shijio as the matron of honor that Di Fui had sent her was fully prepared. Even her innerwear was new. In fact, Gu Shijio had no problem with him wearing a full set of new clothes, but she certainly objected to helping him change into each piece of clothing. Finally, after a round of bargaining, he wore his underwear and trousers himself, and she was only responsible for putting on his robe for him. At first, Gu Shijio thought that wearing a robe would look too simple, but when she had put it on him, she found that her assumption was untrue. Chapter 29-21 The Wedding 7 Although his robe looked simple, it was a bit troublesome to wear. This was especially true for the belt, as she needed to buckle it around his waist. Your belt is abnormal. Di Fui smiled. I have always wanted to be unique, so the belt is naturally an extraordinary one. Then, he raised his arms and waited for her to buckle his belt. Gu Shijio stared at his back for a moment and was caught in a daze. She did not know why, but she suddenly recalled his uncovered back that she had just inadvertently seen. Her heart seemed to have skipped half a beat, but just then she quickly circled his around his waist and buckled his belt. As she was standing very close to him, she could smell that his body exuded a unique fragrance. Furthermore, when she wrapped her hands around him to put on his belt, she could feel his fine and smooth muscle lines. Her heart had subconsciously skipped half a beat all of a sudden. Despite these strange feelings, she felt that her heart seemed to have a very powerful regulating function that could counter all the sudden changes. It only took a split second for things to return to normal for her. Di Fui had quietly closed his eyes slightly to try to sense any irregularities in her heartbeat. From his observations, her heart was loud and clear, but there was no sign of it beating irregularly. His fingers clenched slightly in his sleeves at the discovery, and once again he felt extremely disappointed. She was indifferent to his charm and appeal. Was her heart made of iron? Was the god of creation born with no desire for lust? Was she only allowed to be ruthless? He felt helpless as if he were flirting with a blind man. Perhaps all of his efforts were going to be wasted. For the first time in his life, he had the thought of giving up. While occupied in his thoughts, Di Fui failed to realize 5 delicate fingers were waving in front of him. Hello. He quickly regained his focus and gave his undivided attention to the person in front of him. But when he looked at her, his heart seemed to be one pumping irregularly. Anyway, she had put on his wedding attire as agreed, so he grasped her hand and pulled her away. "Let's go. Otherwise, we will be late." Gu Shijio was speechless. It was him who had delayed them in the first place, but now, he was the one rushing them. She subconsciously wanted to withdraw her hand from his grip, but he held her tightly and said something in a serious tone. "According to tradition, you should be the one who carries me to the car. Are you carrying me, or should I carry you?" Gu Shijio remained silent for a moment but finally agreed on a solution. "Let's just hold hands." Thus, the two of them appeared in front of the public, hand in hand. The people outside had been waiting nervously, hoping that the grooms did not regret his rescission and run away. They were so relieved to see that the couple emerged in such a loving fashion. Before they arrived at the door of the sedan, Di Fui swiftly picked her up from the ground. Gu Shijio was so shocked by his sudden move to the point where she subconsciously hugged his neck. Amazed by the show, the people around could not help but scream and cheer for the lovely couple. It should be the groom who carries the bride into the sedan. However, as we are getting married in your house, the roles were reserved. Nevertheless, since you don't want to carry me, it is appropriate for me to carry you. The rules can't be abolished. Di Fui sent her a directed audio and stopped her from struggling or attacking him. One of the tip's offer fingers was still pointing at a vital part of his neck. Obviously, this was her instinctive reaction to his sudden action. But when she finally heard his explanation, Gu Shijio finally put her finger at ease. She could not help but wonder why there were so many rules. Nonetheless, she was not one who hated customs and traditions. The team finally got back to work, and the flower girls in front of the vehicle were glittering flower petals along the open road. Behind them were guards and a drummer that was playing his instrument. The place was crowded and joyful, with people on both sides of the street smiling and cheering them on. Gu Shijio and Di Fui sat side by side in the car. There was only one row of seats in the sedan that could only fit two people. Although Gu Shijio had touched him before, at the moment, she was sitting a bit too close to him for comfort and felt that it was inappropriate. Chapter 29-22 The wedding 8 beings sat so close together in a private space made her feel even more awkward. She wanted to stand up and adjust her sitting position but thought that it would be too obvious. Hence, she discreetly coughed to clear her throat before saying, "This car needs an additional seat." Di Fui merely looked at her and chuckled. "Everyone who gets married will need to sit this way. What's wrong? Are you shy?" Gu Shijio raised her chin slightly as she replied, "No, I am not. I am the Divine Lord. How can I be shy because of this? Besides, this is all just a show. It's just that I am much older than you, so it's a bit." She could not think of the right word for a moment, so Di Fui went on for her. "It makes you feel like an old cow that eating young grass, right? Or does it more closely resemble a flower being inserted into cow dung?" Gu Shijio was speechless. "I am not an old cow. I am also not cow dung either. Forget it, I will not care about it. I will forgive you for the nonsense that you are uttering." Sternly, she then turned to face him and found that he was also looking at her. As they were seated rather closely, her lips accidentally caressed his chin. She quickly lifted her head to the back, and because she moved too quickly, the back of her head had slammed into the window. The collision surely would not hurt her, but she was left red-faced by the incident. "What are you doing so close to me?" She somehow always found herself out of order when she was with him. Di Fui looked at her innocently as he replied, "Isn't it the fault of the seats?" Gu Zijia's gaze suddenly fell on his chin, and she noticed that there was a faint lip print. She had just remembered that her lips were painted red with lipstick. The grease was too visible. It was the living proof of the crime. Quickly, she drew out a silk handkerchief and wanted to wipe the lipstick off his chin. However, the moving vehicle unexpectedly came to an immediate halt. Unprepared, Gu Shijio immediately tumbled on his body. In that swift moment, her lips were printed on his cheek, leaving another piece of evidence to the crime on his face. Rendered speechless by the sudden escalation of events in the vehicle, She steadied herself and listened attentively to the commotion outside. Who are you? Where did this drunkard come from? Aren't you bold? How dare you to stop the wedding parade of the Divine Lord? Go away! Go away! Then, the sounds of drawing their weapons were heard. The people responsible for protecting the vehicle were ready to take action. Surely, they were no ordinary people, but a phalanx team composed of masters sent from the 6 realms. These people could easily defeat 1,000 opponents in a battle, let alone one drunkard in front of them. However, this time, they had encountered a fierce battle. In just 3 punches and 2 kicks, their opponent had propelled one of their comrades into the crowd. It made everyone around shocked and clamored. Gu Zijia's heart suddenly moved. Was he? She was about to go and check on it herself, but Di Fui stopped her. You are the bride. You should not leave the vehicle. I will go and settle it. He then bent down slightly and went out of the car. At that moment, Gu Shijio suddenly recalled that there were still 2 prints of her lips on Di Fui's face. Master! Master! I want to see you! There was a cry from outside the vehicle. It was Fan Qianshi's voice. Gu Shijio clenched her fingers together tightly. Sure enough, it was him. What was he doing here at this time? The man was no longer a kid. He should at least have some common sense. Just as she was about to get angry with him, Fan Qianshi's voice was ringing in her ear again. Master, the marriage between you and him is all just part of a deal, right? You do not really love him. You just want to make me give up on you, right? Pang! A colorful light shone brightly outside the vehicle, and Gu Zijia's heart skipped a beat this time. She knew that Di Fui had taken action. She could tell from the light that his attacks were not too light or too heavy, but just enough to stop Fan Qianshi from shouting. Chapter 29-23 The Wedding 9. Di Fui, what did you do? Do you dare to punish me? Di Fui waved his sleeves and lazily replied, Why not? If you continue to make trouble, I will make sure you end up lying down horizontally. How dare are you? What qualifies you to treat me this way? I am going to be the husband of your master, so naturally, I am qualified to teach her disciple on her behalf. Di Fui folded up his sleeves as he spoke. Fan Qianshi stared at him in disbelief. We both know that she doesn't love you. You're wrong. She has the final say on whether she loves me or not you. Di Fui lifted his chin slightly, and the sunlight blazed on his handsome face, revealing the lipstick prints on his cheek and chin. These 2 lipstick prints were like 2 flags planted on his face, but it felt like 2 slaps on Fan Qianshi's face. The onlookers started to persuade Fan Qianshi to stand down. Mr. Qianshi, the Divine Lord really likes National Master D. They have been in love with one another since they were in the Devil Kingdom. Yes, Mr. Qianshi, you don't have to worry. Only National Master D suits the caliber of your master. Since her abilities are unrivaled, no one can actually threaten her to fall in love with them. It must be of her own willingness. Fan Qianshi's face went ashen, but his eyes were blood red. He looked at Gu Shiju and tried to beg, Master, don't marry him, I like you. He seemed to be determined and was willing to make his confession in public, but unfortunately, he was not able to finish his sentence because his neck suddenly went cold, and he was not able to talk anymore. Gu Shijio, who had been sitting in the car, was now in front of the carriage and looked at Fan Qianshi. Qianshi, you are drunk. Stop talking nonsense. Come on. 2 children suddenly emerged and saluted her, Divine Lord. Bring him back to sober him up. If she had continued to allow him to speak, she would have ended the apprenticeship offered to him. Yes. The 2 little children were a bit hesitant at first. When they went forward to Fan Qianshi, they were pushed back by him. Although Fan Qianshi could not speak, his pair of bloodshot eyes were staring at Gu Shijio with a burning fire in them. He opened his mouth to try to speak, but he could not utter a word. Suddenly, his blood pressure surged and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He glared at Gu Shijio fiercely, and tears started to roll down his cheeks. Gu Shijio trembled slightly at the sight of his misery. She abruptly moved her eyes away from his face as she sealed his acupuncture point. When she was about to pass him over to the attendants, Wu Qianyan rushed out from the crowd and knelt in front of her. "Divine Lord, please leave him with me. I will bring him back and sober him up." Upset, Gu Shijiao merely waved her hand at her. "This child likes to get drunk and says unreliable things. I am tired of it. Qianyan, I will pass him to you. Please make sure you keep him sober and prevent him from getting drunk again." She threw a pill to Wu Qianyan, which could help reverse the effects of alcohol on one's body. Wu Qianyan accepted it and pulled Fan Qianshi up to hit feet. She quickly left. Just like that, the small incident was over, and the parade continued to move forward. While they were on their way to Gu Exigeous Place, the pair were still sitting side by side in the vehicle, but Gu Shijiao had no interest in talking to him anymore. She looked down at the ground and was in deep thought. "Are you regretting your decision?" Di Fui broke the silence. Gu Shijiao took a deep breath and calmed herself. She was definitely not in the best state of mind as her head was spinning. She rubbed her eyebrows to try to ease the tension as she replied, "His obsession is too deep. I didn't expect him to act so rashly." Di Fui looked at her again and slowly asked, "In fact, I am a little bit curious. Two of you have been accompanying each other for so many years." Chapter 29-24 The Wedding 10 Previous Index Next Add Bookmarks. Di Fui looked at her and slowly asked, "In fact, I am a little bit curious. Two of you have been accompanying each other for so many years. It's not strange for him to have fallen for you. Also, I can tell that you do care about him too. No rule forbids one to have a relationship with their apprentice. So why are you making things so difficult?" Gu Shijiao frowned and answered impatiently, "I only see myself as his master. I do not feel anything else for him that a man and a woman in love would normally feel." "What about me?" Di Fui suddenly asked. "You?" Gu Shijiao furrowed her brows even more. "Is this wedding not an agreement between you and me?" Di Fui's eyes were slightly darkened, but he refused to let the matter go. "I asked you about your feelings toward me. Is it even worse than what you feel for Fan Qianshi?" Gu Shijiao was stunned. "You are not comparable to him." Di Fui's body went stiff almost instantly. "So it turns out that in your heart, I am not even better than him." Gu Shijiao was speechless. Having one Fan Qianshi in her life had already been such a big headache to her, and now Di Fui was at it again. It made Gu Shijiao even more frustrated. She blurted out without thinking too deeply, "Why are you asking so many questions? It is just an agreement. Why are you asking me so many things? Di Fui, are you really falling in love with me?" Di Fui remained silent. In fact, he was silent for a moment, before he suddenly sat up straight and faintly replied, "All right. I won't ask you any more questions, Audiobook. Since this wedding is what you want, you don't have to think about the other consequences. I only hope that you and I can go through with the wedding and finish the show. After all, I have sacrificed so much for this wedding." He smiled and then added a sentence, "Do not forget, I am also your disciple." Gu Shijiao was speechless. "You do not recognize me as your master anyway." Nevertheless, she still reassured him, "Do not worry, the wedding will be completed." Di Fui held out his hand to her and said, "Come on, let's make an oath. No matter what happens in the middle, you will not abort the wedding." Gu Shijiao felt that he was rather foolish. "We don't need this, right?" Di Fui looked at her with a smile, but he did not say anything nor not take back his palm. Seeing that he was not about to back away, Gu Shijiao agreed to take the oath. Read more chapter at VIP Novel. Di Fui remarked in a serious manner, "If you stop this wedding, I will never forgive you, and I will never have any connection with you in this life." Gu Shijiao thought that he was overreacting. But since she was not in the mood to make things worse, she grabbed his hand and agreed. Besides, she committed to marrying him, so she could not imagine why she would back out. Even if she did not get the blessings from the heavens and got struck by a thunderbolt, she would want to see this wedding through. It turned out that God did not seem to quite agree with their deal. Gu Shijiao brought the groom back to her place, and the wedding was carried out in an orderly manner. When the hall was full of guests and they were going to take their vows, Wu Qianyan suddenly rushed in and kneeled in front of Gu Shijiao. "Divine Lord, help. young master? He has broken into God's forbidden land. Gu Zijia's facial expression changed in an instant, and the red silk in her hand fell to the ground. What? While everyone was still confused about what had happened, Gu Shijio only uttered a few words, "I am sorry." Without delay, she teleported away and disappeared. Just like that, Di Fui, who still held the red silk in his hand, was left with a house of guests. Everyone looked at each other and asked, "Where is the forbidden land?" "I don't know, it is the first time I am hearing of it." "Don't look at me. I don't know." The last person who spoke was famous for having insider information around the 6 realms. Chapter 29-25 The Wedding 11. Don't look at me. I don't know. The last person who spoke was famous for having insider information around the 6 realms. If he did not know, then it was likely that the rest would not know either. Therefore, everyone looked at Wu Qianyan, who was still kneeling, but she did not explain the situation to them. She stood up and looked around before making an abrupt announcement. "I am sorry, everyone. Our Divine Lord has something urgent to handle. She will not be able to complete the wedding. I apologize for wasting everyone's time. When our Divine Lord returns, I am sure that she will explain the situation to everyone." Everyone remained silent. Now, they all looked at Di Fui, whose face was a little pale. He seemed to be caught in a daze, and no one knew what was on his mind. Nevertheless, standing there in his wedding attire made him look rather lonely. Fortunately, many of his friends were among the people present. Hence, they decided to comfort him. "National Master, you don't have to be sad. Mr. Qianshi requires the Divine Lord's assistance. Once she saves her disciple, she will definitely select another good date to marry you. Yeah, this is an unexpected accident. I am sure it is not something that the Divine Lord wanted. Rest assured, the Divine Lord will not regret the marriage. When she returns, she will definitely choose another wedding date. All of us will attend again, and everything will be back to normal." Di Fui finally looked up at his friends and spoke calmly, "There is not going to be a wedding." Everyone was confused, but they were about to be enlightened. Since we could not make things work this time, it proves that we are not destined to be together. I will let her go. From now on, I will have no connection with the Divine Lord. He threw away the red silk in his hand, and it shattered in the air, turning into a butterfly that danced around the hall. As soon as he did so, Di Fui left. The crowd was certainly left stunned by the incident. The Forbidden Land was a place where only the God of creation could enter. Because of the lack of time, Gu Shijio worried that if she suddenly immortalized, she would not have time to explain about the place to Fan Qianshi. Thus, after Fan Qianshi recovered from the injuries he sustained when becoming a great deity, she brought him to the Forbidden Land and took him around the place. She explained to him about the taboos here and clearly told him not to enter blindly until he practiced to level 8 of a great deity. Otherwise, his continued existence would not be guaranteed. Gu Shijio did not expect Fan Qianshi to do such a crazy thing. It was clear to her that her apprentice was not going there to explore the place but to end his life. She made several teleports in quick succession and entered the Forbidden Land of God very quickly. Sure enough, at the entrance, she found Fan Qianshi burned in a ball of fire by the fire of God. She cast a spell to destroy the fire in an instant, and then pulled him to the exit and left before the gate was closed. Fan Qianshi's clothes were almost completely burnt into ashes, and his body was badly burnt too. He looked like a burnt piece of paper. Gu Zijia's heart was racing as she was not sure if she would be able to make it. The gate to the Forbidden Land could only be opened for a limited time. Once it was opened, it would close by itself within half an hour and would only open again after a month. If she came a little later, she would either not have been able to get in or get out. While a month for her inside the Forbidden Land was not a concern, for Fan Qianshi, who seemed to be addicted to pain, he would not even last for a couple of hours. That was why Gu Shijio rushed here so eagerly and did not even have time to explain the matter to Di Fui. Now that she finally saved this insensible disciple, Gu Shijio was also very angry at him. In fact, she threw Fan Qianshi to the ground in his semi-conscious state. But just when she was about to turn away, Fan Qianshi eagerly pulled the corner of her dress. Chapter 29-26 The Wedding 12, Master. You are still reluctant to leave me, right? Gu Shijiao immediately pulled back her dress and coldly warned him, Fan Qianshi, I am very disappointed to you. Seeking death is not a manly thing to do. Don't make me look down on you any further. She turned and wanted to teleport away. It took her less than half an hour to get here, so she should be able to make it back to the wedding if she rushed back now. Nevertheless, Fan Qianshi rushed forward and hugged one of her legs. Master, don't leave me. If you leave, I won't live. Gu Shijiao was stunned and slowly turned around and kicked him off with her other foot. Her voice was as cold as ice this time. Then, you can die. But remember, this is the last time I will save you. After that, she did not turn back and swiftly teleported away. No matter how capable she was, she could not save someone who sought death. If Fan Qianshi were looking for death again after she saved him, she would not keep him back. She would lose her successor, but if the next god of creation could not even get through this hurdle, she did not think he would be a good replacement anyway. Fan Qianshi rolled into the mud as he got kicked away. He looked extremely embarrassed, but his heart could not ache any further. He almost sacrificed his life in this hopeless chase, and ultimately he got nothing from it. He smiled miserably and muttered, Master, is your heart made of ironstone? You are so cruel. How can you do this to me? Who else in this world can like you as much as me? Then he laughed out loud as he continued, Master, I regret everything. If I never knew you, unfortunately, there was no rewind button in life. He knew that he was destined to meet her and become her apprentice. He gripped 2 handfuls of mud and clenched it tightly. God, since you created me, why would you create Di Fui? He felt that his current circumstances resembled the encounter between Zhou Yu and Zhuge Liang. Suddenly he punched the ground viciously and said, I don't believe that I am inferior to him in any way. I will be better than him. Master, one day you will regret treating me this way. Di Hao, who was watching all the scenes unfold, could not help but sigh. It seemed that Fan Qianshi's hatred had grown out of love. That was why he created so many troubles for his parents in their next lives. In fact, his mother did care about him. She just did not really love him. She had good intentions for the man and wanted him to focus on his practice. The liveliness in the Tianyin Valley had now faded as the place became deserted. Di Fui's whereabouts were not known, and his guests seemed to have been blown away by the wind. They had all disappeared. Only Wu Qianyan was there, directing the servants to pack up the food in the main hall. Gu Shijiao was still puzzled as she stood at the door. She did not expect the entire place to become this deserted after she left for only an hour. When she appeared, everyone who stayed back quickly went forward to greet her. Wu Qianyan also hurriedly asked, Divine Lord, where is the young master? Did you manage to save him? He isn't dead yet. Gu Shijiao replied bluntly and then asked, Where is Di Fui? He left. He left right after you left. What did he say? Wu Qianyan paused for a moment before finally telling her master what Di Fui had said before he left. Gu Shijiao was stunned by what her servant had conveyed to her. She took a deep breath and replied, I will go and find him. She then turned and teleported away. Gu Shijiao was not able to find Di Fui. When she rushed to his starry hall, it was already empty. Both he and his servants were not there. Gu Shijiao stood in the hall and could not believe how things had changed so abruptly. Chapter 29-27 will not break the promise. It seemed like Di Fui had built this place 20 years ago, and by the looks of it, it was not easy to build. It would take a skilled craftsman a full decade to complete it. Although he only came back once a year, he had assigned some capable servants here to take care of the matter of the house. But now, even those servants were gone. Gu Shijiao subconsciously turned to the wedding hall and room that he had decorated just earlier in the day. All the red decor had been completely removed. In fact, the hall was empty, and the room was cold and deserted. The sight of this made Gu Shijiao stunned for a moment. Quickly, She took out the directed audio spell that she used to contact him and courageously dialed for him. Nevertheless, there was no light emitted from the device at all. There was only one way that this to happen. He had destroyed the directed audio spell that he carried. It seemed that the deal he had made with her was not merely to spite her but turned out to be the truth. He had broken all connections with her entirely. Di Fui was, indeed, a very decisive man. When he decided to let go, he would let go entirely. Read more at Ellis' novel. She remembered the oath that they had made together in the car. If you stop this wedding, I will never forgive you, and I will never have any connection with you in this life. Since she stopped the wedding, she could not blame him. He was keeping his end of the arrangement. If she really wanted to blame someone, she could only blame herself. If she had told him to wait for an hour before she left, perhaps he would have waited. But she was too panicked at the time and only said, "Sorry," before teleporting away. Would he really have no contact with her in the future? No, he was secretly her apprentice, and they still need to lift the apprenticeship. She slowly sat down on the staircase and embraced her knees. She looked at the sky and watched the clouds gathered together while the sun had set and the moon slowly rose. Since Di Fui could let go of everything so decisively, it proved that he would have been able to let go of her in the future, so that was a relief. However, there was a feeling of sullenness in her heart, like a big stone was inside her chest and made it difficult for her to breathe. Divine Lord! A young green-robed teenager appeared in front of her and bowed to her. Gu Shijio was startled at first but recognized that the boy was a servant who was with Di Fui. They met each other several times in the Devil Kingdom. "Where is your master?" Gu Zijia's voice was a bit hoarse. "Where is he? Can you tell him that I want to meet him and explain something to him?" The young green-robed man smiled but did not answer her. He bowed and said, "My master asked me to pass you a message." "What message?" "Don't forget the promise you said you would fulfill after 2.5 years. Divine Lord has broken her promise once. Please don't break it twice." 2.5 years later. That was when she had promised him that she would free him from his apprenticeship with her. Gu Shijio paused for a moment and smiled awkwardly. "Sure. I will never break that promise." Read more at Ellis' novel. Thank you. The young green-robed man bowed again. Then he turned and left. Gu Shijio did not feel very comfortable leaving things the way they were. She guessed that the green-robed man would report to Di Fui about what she had replied, so if she tailed him invisibly, she should be able to see Di Fui again. As a proactive person, Gu Shijio stealthily followed the young man. However, she had not expected the servant to wander around the place. In fact, he went to a restaurant to drink a pot of tea, leisurely. At first, Gu Shijio thought that Di Fui was hiding in this restaurant, so she secretly searched through the restaurant while the young man drank his tea. Unfortunately, she found nothing. She went back to the tea room and found that the young green-robed man finally got up from his seat. Chapter 29-28 will not break the promise too. She went back to the tea room and found that the young green-robed man finally got up from his seat. He suddenly bowed to the air and faintly said, "Divine Lord, I know that you must be following me. However, my master has made himself clear that there is no need to see you anymore. I believe that you want put me in a difficult situation. Please go back." Gu Shijio was speechless. She watched as the young man stepped away from the table but did not follow him out of the restaurant. Di Hao looked at his mother standing there alone and suddenly felt a little distressed. His mother lacked the feeling of love and did not understand the affection that most men and women shared. Nevertheless, by instinct, she was still attracted to his father. If any other man had treated his mother this way, they would have been killed right away. The main reason why his father chose to let go was because of his decisive character. The second reason was that he was really disappointed. His opened heart could not bear the constant feelings of rejection and disappointment over and over again. Although his father was able to feel love, once he felt that there was no hope, he would really let go and cut his losses. However, could he really let go? Di Hao was actually exhausted, but he decided to look into the past again. He knew that it was nearing the end. In the next 2 years, Gu Shijio did not look for Di Fui, and Di Fui, naturally, did not see her again. Gu Shijio was very busy writing some unique techniques that she had developed as the god of creation. She had laid out the most complicated maps of the stars and then threw it to Fan Qianxue to practice. After he escaped death, Fan Qianxue was awakened by the reality of his life, and upon returning to the Tianyin Valley he pleaded with Gu Shijio for a second chance and spent a full month in the snow before being allowed to enter the valley again. Although Gu Shijio allowed him to enter the valley, she did not even give him a smile. Other than the necessary conversations they had to have, she would not talk much with him. Fan Qianxue never brought up matters of the past. He practiced daily and absorbed the unique knowledge that Gu Shijio passed down to him, which helped him grow stronger very quickly. Every now and then he would also leave the valley. Some outings were short, and others even lasted more than 2 months. No one knew where he went, and Gu Shijio never questioned him either. Occasionally, Gu Shijio would also leave the valley for work. In some of the wine cellars, she would hear of the greatest achievements Di Fui had made of late. For example, it only took him 2 years to transform the Ghost Kingdom. Furthermore, his subordinates were growing in numbers every day in all of the 6 realms. He had established a robust information network so that he was always informed of the ongoing in each kingdom, and there was now virtually nothing that he did not know. The Emperor of the human world was brilliant. He invited him over and made him the national master while delegating supreme power to him, letting him make radical reformation, even it hurt the royal family. He was getting closer and closer to becoming the ruler of the 6 realms now, and his identity was heralded all over that no one could stand shoulder to shoulder with him aside from the god of creation. Quietly, Fan Qianxue's growth was also very swift. After all, he was the natural successor of the god of creation. Once he concentrated on his practice, everything started moving in his favor. In just 2 years, his skills had reached the 7th stage of a great deity. He had also mastered half of the starry map that Gu Shijio had taught him. Although he was still unable to create the real star, there was already the power to move mountains, reclaim the sea, and picked the stars. Gu Shijio was generally happy with his progress. It was a relief to her that he managed to overcome the issues of the past. Lately, she realized that most of her memory as the god of creation was returning to her. Perhaps, it was a sign that her inevitable immortalization was soon approaching. Chapter 29 will not break the promise. 3 One of the memories she recalls now is that she used to have a candle dragon as a guardian. Apparently, every god of creation would be gifted with one. She had hers about 10,000 years ago, but in a big catastrophe, her candle dragon died from protecting her. Apparently, she had been lethargic since then until now. It was then that she recalled that every god of creation would catch a small candle dragon for their successor and help them domesticate it. Nevertheless, the domestication of the little candle dragon was a rather lengthy process. She did not think that she would have so much time here, so it was better for him to domesticate it personally. When thinking of catching one, she also remembered that the candle dragon had a strange attribute. It would recognize whoever saw it first as its owner. For this reason, when she went to the clan of the Candle Dragons, she took Fan Qianxue along with her and hoped that he would personally catch one. She would be there to help him from the side. The Candle Dragon land was famously known as a dangerous place on the mainland. Without the appropriate skills, no one would dare to come here, as it would be as good as walking into their grave. The sky here regularly rotated from bright to dim in this place. When it was sunny, it felt like it was daytime with the clear skies, but when it was dark, one could not even see their 5 fingers. It was absolute darkness. Even those who gifted with good vision would not be able to see anything. They had to solely rely on touch and their 6th sense to maneuver about the place. Gu Shijio took Fan Qianxue to the clan of the Candle Dragons but did not take the water path discovered by Di Fui. She was not familiar with the waterway and did not think her water ability was that polished, so she did not want to take this risk. Fortunately, she remembered another way to enter the Candle Dragon clan. The place was undoubtedly huge, with an area as vast as the Arctic Ocean. It was a world of its own, with all kinds of different beasts that even Gu Shijio did not know how to name. One thing was certain, the 110 candle dragons here were at the top of the food chain. They were the kings here, and no other animals would dare to provoke them. Read more at L.'s novel. The broad-leaved forest covered the sky and the sun. The color of the grass was vivid and glistened when a light shone on it. Surveying the area made them feel like they were alive during the uncivilized times, especially when they saw strange animals flying past them from time to time. Of course, the animals here were incredibly fierce. Even those who were not near the top of the food chain could easily kill an outsider. The standard rule of survival was to be the strongest so that other creatures would not dare to attack you. Most of the animals here were generally huge, which reminded them of the dinosaur era. As compared with these fierce beasts, Gushijio and Fanchensher were extraordinarily petite. It was as if they were specially made for other animals to bully them. Many beasts targeted them as prey when they made their way around the place. Nonetheless, these predators did not manage to capture their victims. Instead, they were either hunted or killed by the master and her apprentice. After traveling through the place for some time, both of them had reached into the depths of the clan but did not see any of the candle dragons in sight. Master, is this really the land of the candle dragons? How have we not seen one? Do you think that the candle dragons are like cabbages that just lie all over the place? Fanchensher kept quiet and bowed his head after that remark. Gushijio ignored him and continued to move forward. Meanwhile, Fanchensher watched her from behind for a moment and then followed after her. All of a sudden, there were a few loud cries from the distance. Gushijio's eyes lit up as she heard them. Candle dragon. From the sound of it, it was likely that there was more than one. Nevertheless, it sounded as though the dragons were provoked by something. Gushijio pondered her options for a moment and then advised Fanchensher, "Wait here. I will go and take a look." In a matter of seconds, her figure had disappeared. Fanchensher looked down at the ground and found a secret place to wait for her master patiently. Meanwhile, Gushijio had not expected to meet Di Fui here. When she found him, the man was single-handedly battling with two candle dragons. The first thing that crossed Gushijio's mind was whether the man was here to steal another egg from the candle dragon. Was he addicted to eating their eggs? The candle dragon was known as an ancient mythological beast. One dragon could easily kill two masters at the great deity level. And now, Di Fui had provoked two dragons at the same time. Chapter 29:30 will not break the promise, for the two candle dragons were fighting valiantly as if they encountered a ferocious enemy. The battle with Di Fui was so intense to the point where dust had covered the sky above them and made it rather dark. Even with Di Fui's current abilities, it was tough to deal with these two candle dragons at once. He tried to escape several times but was blocked by them. These candle dragons were already seasoned fighters and knew how to apply different techniques in order to keep their prey in their grasps. Therefore, Di Fui could not find an opportunity to escape the battlefield for a while. Gushijio frowned slightly at the situation. With her current abilities, she could not cope with two candle dragons. Furthermore, even if she wanted to help him using her teleportation ability, it was difficult to get him while he was moving about, so she had to act smartly. The candle dragons had been chasing him around the place for some time but could not land any blows to Di Fui, thanks to his steadfast agility. They were a little annoyed and raised their head and howled for a moment. Just then, the place had suddenly turned into a place as dark as night. Swiftly, a candle dragon took the opportunity to attack Di Fui while the conditions were changing. Di Fuius did not see the attack coming, and by the time he felt that a gust of wind had come to his face, it was already too late to hide. He made up his mind and decided to take the risk to hide in its stomach. Just then, another gust of wind swooshed past him, and his arm was grabbed. He was shocked and subconsciously wanted to push away, but he also heard the howling of the candle dragons in the distance, which made him change his mind. Teleportation. He narrowed his eyes to try to see the identity of the person that reached out to him. Although he could not see the person, he had already guessed the identity of the other party. After one teleport, the wind and howling had stopped. Di Fui stepped on the ground to try to sense his surroundings. Although he still could see what was around him, He could smell the fragrance of the plants and the unique scent of the person near to him. He forcefully withdrew his hand from her grasp and stepped back as he uttered, "Thank you for helping me, Divine Lord." This was their first encounter after 2 years and 5 months. It was undoubtedly their first dialogue as well. Di Fuyi's words were polite, but his tone was cold. Gu Shijio replied awkwardly, "No need to mention." "You are welcome." She was somewhat not used to his politeness, so her reply came out a little weird. Although she did not know why, Gu Shijio had an indescribable feeling of grievance that twitched in her chest, making her eyes somewhat irritated. Fortunately, it was absolute darkness around the place, so they could not see each other. Therefore, Gu Shijio did not have to hide her expression. 2 years ago, her first reaction would be to quickly explain the incident that happened during the wedding when she ran away. But no, she only had a month left to live. The countdown was real, so why would she explain herself? It would only burden him. Therefore, she smiled and started a topic that she thought would not trigger any sadness. "Why are you here? Are you addicted to eating the eggs of candle dragons?" Di Fui remained silent for a moment before faintly asked, "Divine Lord, is this an inquiry?" Gu Shijio was speechless. Perhaps she could just pretend that she did not ask. The two continued to stand opposite each other and remained quiet for some time. Although she could not see him, she could definitely sense the strong aura around him and was inexplicably flustered. Just when she was trying to find another topic to cut the tension between them, there was something placed in her hand. It was an egg the size of a basketball. Gu Shijio was stunned. She blurted out, "So you did come to steal the egg? This one is for you to thank you for your help." Di Fui sounded indifferent as he passed her an egg. "You don't have to be so polite." In fact, Gu Shijio did not think that she had done much. "I don't want to owe you any kindness." Di Fui interrupted her, but this time he sounded colder. Gu Shijio did not reply this time. The candle dragon egg in her hand was like a hot yam. Di Fui decided to continue. "Our agreement is due in a month. I only hope that you will not break the promise again." Gu Shijio looked down at the ground as she replied, "Rest assured, this time, I will not break the promise. I will choose to believe in you once again. You warned me that when we cancel the mentoring arrangement, there will be a catastrophe in the form of thunderbolts. Therefore, this candle dragon egg may help you. It is my compensation to you for your troubles." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.